Hey class, I hope you are all doing well. We are headed into week 2, which means congratulations. You have made it through 1/16th of the course. We do not have class this Monday, January 15th, in observance of Martin Luther King Day. So I just want to touch base with you on a few items as well as introduce you to this week's topics, reading and assignments on Mesopotamia. When I post videos, it is because I have important information to pass on to you. So make sure you are viewing the videos in their entirety. That being said, I am going to make it worth your while this week. If you watch the video to the end, I will share with you how to gain a little bit of extra credit on your short writing assignment number 2. So let's go ahead and get started. Oh, you can see my dog behind me. That's Stratford. If you think you know why my dog's name is Stratford, share with me in the next class. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so your first short writing assignments are still sort of trickling in, but so far they're looking pretty terrific. If you turn your assignment in on time, you will probably have feedback and a grade no later than end of day on Monday. Please, please, please incorporate this feedback moving forward. This feedback is what I refer to as the I done told yous. For instance, if I have indicated your MLA formatting is in need of attention, I done told you. In other words, you have been made aware that there is an issue that may potentially cost you points at grading moving forward. So be sure to use the information and the resources I provide you to improve. If you have questions or need more help understanding, email me, come and speak to me before class, after class, during our breaks. If you feel like you need more one-on-one, we can also schedule that. I am a resource and I'm here to help. Also, I really appreciate your candor and thoughtfulness in sharing your expectations for the course. It looks like we are more or less on the same page in respect to the content and delivery, and I'm going to be able to tailor this class to your interests and how you learn. Of course, as I get to know you a little bit better, I'm also going to be able to improve in that capacity. So one more very important point, I want to talk to you for a moment about the course content in respect to your religious beliefs. So I'll give you an example. After class, our first class, a student came to me and asked if Adam and Eve were Homo habilis. And I really, really love this question. However, although my training includes a great deal of theological thought, I myself am not a theologian, so I do not consider myself qualified to answer this question. However, I really love that the student applied her faith to the course. So in fact, many people do believe that Adam and Eve were amongst these early humans, and within the scientific community, there is an effort to identify common ancestors through DNA research. People who worship the God of Abraham might refer to these ancestors as Adam and Eve. I realize that evolution is controversial, and while many people reconcile their religious beliefs with evolution, this is not going to be the case for everyone. Some of you may feel that evolution is at odds with your beliefs, and please note this is okay. I have great respect for your beliefs, and the intention of this course is not to trample those beliefs. Religion is an important aspect of culture, and so we're going to be talking about some other big ideas that just might not be the same as yours. Um, but please keep in mind we are exploring these ideas as academics, which is quite different than the way we may have learned many of these ideas in our places of worship. Still, in your own exploration, please feel free to apply your faith and tap into your own humanness as this student did. It will help you make the material more your own and help you tailor your education to you. For instance, we will be reading the Hebrew Bible this week. If you are a Christian, Muslim, or Jew, you have probably already engaged with these texts in a religious capacity, which is going to give you some great context. But as this is a humanities course, we will be looking at them as humanities artifacts that deepen our understanding of what it means to be human. Again, as always, if you have any concerns about this, feel free to voice them in class or come speak to me. All right, so last week we read about prehistory and the birth of civilization. If you have not already read the introduction to the humanistic tradition, you are now behind. Make sure you get caught up before we meet again. This week we will be headed into Mesopotamia. I'm guessing a lot of the material this week is not going to be entirely new to you. You probably covered Mesopotamia in your K through 12 educations. If not, please do not worry. Just be sure to read the chapter and supplemental readings, especially closely, so that we're all about on the same page when we meet again. As we learned at the tail end of the introduction in our textbooks, civilization started sometime around 4000 BCE. The advent of agriculture meant that humans no longer had to move around to hunt and gather their food, and they were able to stay in one place. Eventually, this is going to lead to surpluses of food, and the small villages are going to grow in size and population. Mesopotamia is the first civilization of the ancient world. It pops up in that fertile area that lies between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. As populations grow, labor becomes more specialized and divided. While in the hunter-gatherer societies, pretty much everyone pitched in, doing the same or about the same work. We talked about this last week, a little bit about the hunting. In Mesopotamia, we start to see new sort of divisions of labor. Leaders, laborers, artisans, craftsmen, etc. Everybody has more specialized work. Naturally, this is going to be important in the advancement of technology and social orders and structures. So this week's chapter provides a pretty succinct overview of Mesopotamia. We will be going over Mesopotamia more thoroughly in depth in our next class, but in preparation for that, I just want to point out a few of the highlights. First off, when we say Mesopotamia, we are actually talking about multiple people civilizations that occupied the same region. First, we have the Sumerians and later the Akkadians, that includes the Assyrians and Babylonians. Don't let this confuse you as you read the chapter. We are still talking about Mesopotamia. This chapter also addresses another people who are kind of hanging around Sumer around the same time, and that's going to be the Hebrews. Toward the beginning of the chapter, you are going to find the Babylonian creation myth. Last week, we read some creation myths from India, Africa, the Mayans, and Mohawks. Pretty much all cultures have a creation story. And as I mentioned in our very first class, you're going to notice a lot of commonalities between cultures as we progress in this course. We will also be taking a look at the creation story in Genesis and seeing what connections we can draw there. We'll also be taking a very close look at the Epic of Gilgamesh. This course does incorporate a lot of literature. The textbook includes excerpts, but there will be times that I will supplement with additional text or the full text so as to provide you with a more complete picture. That's going to be the case this week. Please see the supplemental reading in Module 2 for the full text of the Epic of Gilgamesh. And there's also a pretty helpful animated video that presents the story. If you're having a hard time understanding what's going on just from that text, that's going to help aid your understanding. Again, you may have encountered the Epic of Gilgamesh in your K through 12 educations. I taught it at the high school level. I learned it at the high school level. Maybe if that's not the case for you, no problem. But it is an epic poem from ancient Mesopotamia that follows the adventures of the king Gilgamesh. We are not reading the very first version. The very first version is actually lost to us. This is one of the first surviving versions. When we make, again, I will explain how we know that. But for now, just know that Gilgamesh is an epic hero and the embodiment of Babylonian cultural values. As you read the Epic of Gilgamesh, please consider just what those values might be. Also, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, you will be reading a story about a flood. If you are familiar with the story of Noah and the flood in Genesis, this story is going to be very familiar. As you read, consider how the two flood stories are the same and different. The story of Noah is also available in the supplemental reading, and just in case anybody needs their memories jogged or you just aren't familiar with that story. This will also serve as preparation for an activity in class that we will do next Monday, the 22nd. We will also be taking a look at some of the laws of this time, including the Hammurabi's Code. More people means more rules are needed. Hammurabi's Code is one of the oldest and longest legal documents available to us. We can learn a lot about a culture from its laws. So again, as you read, ask yourself what this text tells us about the Mesopotamians, their values and their concerns, and also how do these laws compare to our own? Speaking of laws, this chapter also includes discussion of Hebrew law and the Ten Commandments. The textbook offers us a little bit of background on the Hebrews, but again, when we meet again, we will be getting more into who the Hebrews were, their contributions, and their beliefs. In addition to the reading you will complete in Chapter 1 and the supplemental reading and videos, you will also be composing another short writing assignment. This one's going to be different from last week. Last week we had 4 questions that we answered all within the same essay. This time you are just going to be choosing one prompt to answer, and you have a choice of 3. The first one is, what makes Gilgamesh an epic hero? And how does he compare to heroes in contemporary literature and or popular culture? So by contemporary, I mean the heroes of today. So feel free to have fun with this. If you have a favorite superhero, for example, or you love a particular literary protagonist, for instance, Katniss from the Hunger Games, you are going to use them to compare to Gilgamesh. And then the second option is, what does the Code of Hammurabi reveal about the values of Babylonian society, and what behaviors are more or less universally condemned across cultures? So again, what do I mean by that? First off, please know that universally means almost universally. There are exceptions to every rule, some outliers. For example, human cannibalism is generally condemned universally across human cultures. There are exceptions, but in general, eating other people is a no-go. What are some other no-goes you just kind of see across all the different laws in general across human culture? And then finally, the third option is compare and contrast the Code of Hammurabi and the Ten Commandments. Anytime I use the phrase compare and contrast, I'm looking for both similarities, compare, and contrast differences. So make sure you're not focusing on just one or the other, but combining the two. As always with these short writing essays, make sure they're at least 300 words in length. I am kind of seeing a little bit where students are kind of getting to that 300 word mark and just stopping abruptly. Make sure your essay is still structured with a clear intro, body, and conclusion. Don't just stop when you get to that 300 word mark. That could cost you points at grading. Also, make sure it is formatted in MLA. This assignment does not call for your personal opinions, personal thoughts, and feelings, so it will be written in the third person. That's going to be a little bit dissimilar from last week as well. Be sure to support your ideas with evidence from the textbook, supplemental readings, videos, and or your own independent research. Again, if you use research, make sure you're following those guidelines that we discussed in the first class. There is also a writing module that has the research expectations in there if you need a little help remembering what those guidelines were. Again, make sure you submit your finished essay as a Word document. No other formats will be accepted to Canvas, and that's going to be due this Sunday, January 21st. If you need a little bit more information about how I'm going to be grading that, that rubric is going to be there for you to download. Right, so if you made it to this point of the video, thank you for watching the video in its entirety. To get 3 extra credit points on this week's short writing assignment, all you need to do is write the word Ishtar, she's our goddess from the Epic of Gilgamesh, at the end of your essay. All right, so that is it for me this week. Now the rest is up to you. If you have questions, please reach out. Have a safe and happy Martin Luther King Day weekend and enjoy your week 2. I'll see you in week 3.